Warning. This podcast features the truth about owning and operating mobile home parks. The following program is not designed to be sexy. It will not hype you up on MHPs. Rather, this is a raw take on this industry and how you find your own path to success. Welcome to MHP IRL, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, with your host, Ryan Norris.
Diligence is the mother of good fortune. Quote by Benjamin Disraeli. Typically, while under contract, one gets 30 days for an inspection period and 30 days to close. On this episode, we'll focus on that inspection period. Due diligence can be really fun, playing detective, but for your own investment purposes. DD can bolster your day one planning and even uncover tidbits that sweeten the pot. But DD can also provide you with bad news, that a property won't work out the way you hoped it would, potentially costing you thousands and a reputational hit just to back out. Regardless, this portion of acquisitions is absolutely crucial to get right. You are about to risk thousands, if not millions of dollars. Let's begin. Chapter 1. General. First and foremost, I will push you to re-listen to the episode before your LOI. In this way, I can avoid having to reiterate the importance of having your investors, lenders, operating agreements, and structures already in place so you can focus on being a good detective without any other distractions during the inspection period. Assuming that's all set, you'll need a good attorney. We once had an attorney somehow not record the deed at closing. We had another 2 separate attorney groups on other deals not bother to do proper mobile home title work despite explicitly agreeing to do it. Both occasions took months to figure out and involved us having to do major portions of title work on our own. I could go on sharing stories of paralegals going through life meltdowns, to combative paralegals arguing with lenders, to just radio silence from all parties. Y'all, pick a good attorney. Don't cheap out on this stage. You'll thank them for the lack of headaches. Prices will vary by complexity, state, and deal size, but for deals under $3 million in the Southeast, we have usually spent between $3,000 and $5,000 per closing on attorney costs. We have had the best success with attorneys from recommendations from others within the business. If you haven't already joined our Facebook group called Mobile Home Park Mastermind, join us. It's free with hundreds of people across the United States willing to recommend folks in about every state. With the right people in place, you'll need to select a title company, send the earnest money, and collect due diligence documents from the seller. Remember, if the language is correct in your contract, your DD clock won't start until you say it does. Also, don't ever send thousands of dollars without a clear path to get it back if you back out of a deal. This, again, like many other things that could go wrong, is solved with solid wording in your contract. Again, pick the right attorney. Chapter 2. Financials. Start with the rent roll. When did people move in? When do leases expire? Are they weekly, monthly, or yearly? What clauses do the leases hold? Are there even leases? What happens if there is no lease? Are the rents locked for a period of time? Believe it or not, we actually do rent locks at several of our properties. Imagine buying a property only to realize you can't raise the rent. Apartments like yearly leases, and a lot of park-owned home-heavy communities subscribe to this same model. If you want to convert to tenant-owned home, the leases might prohibit that process. Lease info, or lack thereof, can make or break a deal. Does one tenant or investor own way too many homes? We once backed out of a deal costing us thousands because one investor owned way too many homes for us to be comfortable. What's the lot rent versus the market? When was the last time the rent was raised? I've seen sellers double lot rent right before a sale. Sometimes it works and everyone pays. A lot of times it's just a cheap way to snag a few extra pennies. Generally, banks want to see at least a year of seasoning to count a recent lot rent bump towards the valuation of a property. The rent rolls and copies of leases should provide you vital information from turnover to rent raises to delinquency, etc. This is crucial as, remember, this is largely a debt collections business. The rent roll is your scoreboard and delinquency count the score. We have seen plenty of unsophisticated owners fail to screen properly. With that in mind, and since tenant-owned homes are a lot more difficult to evict, having a breakdown of who owes what and who owns what will help you guide your decision to buy or to pass and will shape your first 90 days. Review tax returns and bank deposits. Trust, but verify. Just because rent rolls and P&Ls say Lot 50 pays $300 each month doesn't mean the owner collects, deposits, and reports that money to the IRS. I can't tell you how many times we have run into an unsophisticated seller that essentially has two sets of books because they like the under-the-table money. With banks, that won't fly. Your bank will need some confidence that you will pay their mortgage. So bank statements and tax returns allow them to trust but verify. And even if you went cash or seller carry, you too will want that proof that you are buying a viable cash flowing business. Count and measure lots. The same theory applies here. Trust but verify. Sure, maybe the rent roll matches the total number of lots. But what if those lots are only 40 feet? Will you be able to move in new homes? Or replace older homes if necessary? What if the vacant lots are overgrown, lack infrastructure or zoning? Expenses. Who pays what? Trash, landscaping, water, sewer, power, TV, phone, etc. can go either way. I've seen parks pay for all those. I've seen parks pay for none of those. The onus is on you to figure out what's actually going on. But more than just that, the onus is on you to figure out what you could be doing better once you acquire the property. We have found owners running personal expenses through the property. We have found redundant employees milking the system. And we have found the opposite. Sellers not paying to maintain the wells, septic, or other vital systems to keep costs low. Things like this can fundamentally change your underwriting. Here's a piece I don't hear enough about. Taxes. How much will taxes increase post-sale? It's crucial to call the county to understand tax assessments, schedules, sunset provisions, special assessments, specific fees associated with mobile home parks, and purchase ramifications. Even then, counties may say they only reassess once every 7 years, and they just reassessed last year, only for them to invent a reason to assess ahead of schedule and crank up your taxes. A few other financial things to consider include tracking down security deposit records, probing for additional expenses like labor hours performed by the owner which doesn't make the P&L, and analyzing possible ancillary income for things like renting out garage space. Regardless, the theme I want to keep coming back to here is that you are playing detective. You need to drill down big time and leave no stone left unturned. Chapter 3, Market Research. You'll want comps from local recently traded mobile home parks, lot rents, a breakdown of what is and isn't included in those lot rents, park-on-home rents, apartment rents, single-family home rents, and home prices. Professor Charles Becker of Duke University came out with a massive report detailing out many interesting findings. You know what stood out to me the most? He found market lot rents correlate highly with apartment rents. It makes sense why. Generally speaking, people who need affordable housing either don't have good credit, don't have strong income, or don't have either. So, if one can't afford local apartments, what makes you think a bank will approve them to buy a home? Becker's data supports that too, finding only a slightly positive correlation between median home prices and lot rent. Okay, apartment rents align more with lot rents than do median home prices. So what? If the apartment rents in your area that you want to buy are a multiple of lot rent, you are in a phenomenal spot to raise rents. How would you know if market lot rent isn't what the market could or should support? According to Becker, look no farther than apartments. Think about it like this. If your research showed market lot rent hovers around $150 per month, but local apartments never dip below $1,000 per month, the local market may support rents way higher than you initially thought. In that example, you may find you have seemingly unlimited demand at $300 per month or more. Strongly performing test ads at elevated lot rents could fundamentally change your underwriting or strategy with said property. The opposite may prove true as well. What if local apartments rent for $600 per month and the seller wants you to believe he can charge $475 per month? Ultimately, your research needs to answer this question. Can the market support the lot rent you need to be successful? Once you become comfortable with market rents, you'll want to look into local schools, place test ads, and speak with the Chamber of Commerce for local business information. You know who has unique and valuable insight? Mobile home dealers. They know most of the local owners and have been around through good times and bad. You'd be surprised what you can learn from them. Check your own network too. Do you know folks that live in that area? Locals, whether in your network or outside of it, never fail to deliver information tough to find on the internet. Your detective work also needs to include understanding demographics and growth patterns of the park and the area. Different ages, ethnicities, etc. abide by their own cultural rules, and you'll find different ads hit different buttons and appeal to different audiences. You'll need to have an intimate understanding of who lives in the area, who you would want to live in your community, and most importantly, how to market to and attract the tenant base pivotal to your strategy. Chapter 4, Park Specifics. Have you ever been whacked with a power stick by a local, lower-level bureaucrat? Imagine being under contract on what you think is 100 lots, only to find out zoning has it at just 50 lots, meaning your infill plan is now dead. Or what if you measured the lots, but the setback rules yield lots useless due to lack of space between the road and the lot? Local governments can end a deal. Thankfully, in our experience, most will work with you, and the pains usually end up being reasonable at the end of the day. But you need to speak with zoning, planning, permitting, environmental health, and as mentioned before, the tax assessor. The sheriff's office can also provide some strong information about crime in the area that crime reports and sex offender searches don't include. We have gleaned crucial information from the magistrate's office. Seriously, spend a bit of time talking to other landlords filling out eviction forms and the employees working to process those requests. Oftentimes, they'll know the ugly side of the property you are buying, especially if they have repeat offender troublemakers living there. Remember, this is a debt collections business. Your ability to evict will be a big piece of your operations. So, especially for those up north or out west where it takes longer to evict, spend some time understanding the eviction process and squeeze any information you can out of those local offices. The permitting office will contain great information about what it'll take to move in homes, but they should also have a history of offenses and violations for the park. A lot of times you can uncover some serious issues a park is having this way. We once got in touch with the EPA over a well we were highly suspicious of, only to find out the owner had been hit with a serious warning. Here's the crazy part. The EPA shared with us the exact date they issued that violation notice. And wouldn't you know, it was just a few days before that seller verbally agreed to our price. That was a potentially several $100,000 mistake we avoided. Speaking of hidden deal killers, back tax. I once had to retrade a seller about over $50,000 in unpaid park-owned home back tax. Shockingly, the seller agreed without much pushback. Sometimes sellers will just not tell you things at the forefront of their minds. Almost like, well, if they find out, I'm going to be honest, but I'm not going to volunteer that information. Park-owned homes require their own set of diligence. What's the bed-bath split? Age, condition, mold issues, rehab costs, outstanding code violations. Are there abandoned homes? What does the abandoned home process look like? Are there condemned homes? How much will it cost to remove and replace a condemned home? Finally, you'll want to make sure you have either a good manager in place or an idea of who will be taking over. Sometimes you'll have a great manager that, for whatever reason, just won't be staying on. Sometimes you'll have an awful manager you'll want to replace ASAP. We once interviewed a park manager that sounded incredible, but had been at the property for several years, allowing crime and delinquency to skyrocket. So the actions didn't match the words. Chapter 5. Infrastructure. Your biggest threat that most either don't talk about or don't talk enough about is CapEx, specifically infrastructure. We once brought our trusted local plumber out to do a site tour on a property we had under contract. Thankfully, to discover an over $500,000 Orangeburg sewer pipe issue. Orangeburg pipes are made out of layering wood pulp and pressing it together. This piping is as frail as it sounds and was largely swapped out with PVC shortly after World War II, but carried on through the 70s. Needless to say, you need to ask, or discover on your own, what pipes are made out of. You need to ask who is responsible for servicing these pipes. You need to inspect the area for trees and roots that could be potentially growing into the lines. This can get tricky without maps or diagrams of the infrastructure. Since mobile home parks usually sport privately owned lines, a 411 locate call won't help. And if the work was completed over a decade, the local utilities contractor teams may not be around anymore or have kept records of the job. We once didn't match water bills to tenant usage and ended up having to call every plumber in the area to finally land on one person to fix a major leak. For more on that, check out my episode Due Diligence Nightmare. We also once discovered live gas lines crisscrossing over vacant pads. It turns out, even with zoning, some pads have other landmines making them not so viable. Beyond sewer and water lines, you'll need to dig deep on the water and sewer provider. You'll want to speak with the well and septic operators, check records, consult with the EPA and local environmental health departments for past violations, and verify who is responsible for what. For septics, you'll want to check on the viability of adding another leach field if one fails. For wells, you'll want to check the viability of drilling another well. For both, you'll want to understand if a city connection is close by and what that will entail. How much are city tap fees? Do they require a utilities contractor to do everything, or can your trusted plumbing team handle the task? Will an engineer need to be involved? Have you ever heard of a lift station? I didn't, until nearly my third year in mobile home parks. Our fifth acquisition had a lift station we had to replace more than once. Essentially, sewer systems thrive on gravity, which can be quantified by the plumbing term fall. Well, not all properties have ideal grading, resulting in negative fall, which requires essentially a sewage pump, aka a lift station. These can be costly to fix and maintain, not to mention annoying if the alarm is old and loud and likes to scream false alarms at inappropriate times. Along with water and sewer, each home will need power. You'll want to check meter boxes, ensuring they are graded for 200 amps or more. Although you can up a 100 amp box to a 200 amp box, you'll also need to increase the amps in the connection wires, which may require more cash than you originally budgeted. What about road repairs? I don't think we have had an insurance inspection once not find and complain about potholes. Most quality paving companies don't want small pothole jobs, so you may find yourself scrambling for a paver to quell insurance after the fact. I think we can all agree trees are wonderful, and we want more of them in the world. But just not in our mobile home parks. Large trees, when left unattended for years, pose as major liabilities. We have lost homes to falling trees, been forced to clean seemingly never-ending branch debris, and fix issues caused by roots. Chapter 6. Operations. Mobile home parks appeal to the masses because they supposedly are low-effort, coupon-clipping assets largely run by unsophisticated mom-and-pops. Even if that is true, what's the opposite side of that coin? Simply put, we should expect an unsophisticated operator to leave us plenty of headaches to sort through. First, and arguably most important, the tenants. People move in and out all of the time. All it takes is one bad tenant to cause a world of hurt with drugs and violence and payment delinquency. I'm shocked how few people realize a very, very basic truth. Screening tenants is really hard. We deal with a typically credit-challenged tenant base and hope they not only pay, but don't move. Think about that. It takes serious skill to find a strong-paying, rule-abiding tenant. And even when we find that needle in a haystack, we also need to remember they are one calamity away from going bust. So even proper screening may mean nothing if someone living paycheck to paycheck gets into a serious car accident. Even if you did everything right, something completely out of your control can leave an abandoned mobile home you can't touch on your property. So, if these assets were largely owned by unsophisticated mom and pops, you potentially have some major tenant-based issues to resolve. What's the best way to figure out what you have? Talk to them! Yes! Go to the property and speak with the residents. You'll learn all sorts of stuff documents and local officials won't know, like water pressure issues, deferred maintenance, preferential treatment of certain tenants, side deals affecting profit and loss statements, issues with the current park manager, suspicious activity, problem tenants, problem neighbors adjacent to the property outside of your control, and so on. My jaw has dropped countless times upon discovering information from residents, employees, and park contractors while the seller isn't listening. It's mind-blowing how quickly people just spew out information. Chapter 7. Third-party info. Depending on several factors, you'll look into things like Phase 1 environmental studies, Phase 2 studies if necessary, surveys, appraisals, insurance quotes, septic and well inspections, etc. We've been able to skirt surveys with copies of recent ones, dodge appraisals with cash closings and seller carry, and just straight punted on Phase 1 studies. But each could uncover vital information. A property not appraising could end up forcing you to raise more capital or kill the deal altogether. A survey could provide unexpected hardship. For example, we were once forced by a bank to get a super detailed survey, which quotes came in from $20,000 up to nearly $40,000 to complete. I could point you to several people who swear by Phase 1 studies as they have saved them from thousands in bad investment decisions. Is your property in a flood zone? If so, speak at length with your insurance provider. If you have private utilities in that floodplain, how does that affect the performance of the utilities? What about moving in new homes into floodplains? Will you need an environmental study or county approval? Search local news for any property with potential flood issues. We once uncovered a shocking YouTube video on a property completely flooded out. Plan on selling off park-owned homes quickly? Again, your insurance provider can work with you, helping you budget and make your pro forma more accurate with quotes of how much the premiums will drop once those homes are offloaded. Finally, it's good to speak with local real estate professionals. Brokers can share vital local trading information. Developers can discuss viability of a covered land play, although that's pretty rare in my experience. Chapter 8. Park Visit. We once spent about $30,000 in the first few months fixing back-due maintenance on park-owned homes. You know how we missed that? The seller cherry-picked which homes we were allowed to walk through and which we weren't because he didn't want to disturb the residents or alert them to a potential sale. Other times, we have walked through the homes we wanted to go through only to later find out the tenants covered up issues with couches, chairs, paintings, etc. Drive through the property at night, too. How many cars are parked in the driveways? Are there sketchy characters up to no good? Do the streetlights cover enough area? Spend time in the local area, too. Go to a local restaurant for lunch and chat with the folks there. You'll learn a lot about the culture of the submarket. I've mentioned before that adjacent property issues usually are completely out of your control and can cause serious issues on your property. We once paid about $20,000 for a collapsed French drain on someone else's property that directly affected our residents. I doubt we ever could have caught that during due diligence, but that's just to say you need to keep an eye out for potential liabilities off-site as well. Chapter 9. Miscellaneous. Always be timely and cognizant of when your earnest money goes non-refundable. A friend of ours almost lost $100,000 of earnest money on a deal she had to back out of. Another friend of ours had to sue the seller to get his money back. We knew both the buyer and seller, and each had very valid reasons to be upset. So, it happens. Be careful. Expect delays. We have had to delay more than one purchase just because of the survey. We have had to delay because of 1031 issues. A hurricane once delayed our ability to initiate insurance. The point is, delays will happen, and from out of nowhere. You'll need to really be on top of everything to ensure things get done when they need to get done, or at least you have a plan in place for when they don't. Stay on top of paralegals. It'll frustrate you to no end how frequently a paralegal will say, "Oh, let's just delay closing." Or worse, "We can't close on time." You may find yourself doing their jobs for them, even if they're really good at their jobs. Too many hands in the cookie jar. Be mindful of breakdowns in communication. The email chains will get ridiculous with the surveyor trying to get in touch with you and the banker, but forgetting to CC the attorney, or the paralegal trashing the banker, but forgetting to remove them from the CC list. Drama will happen with too much or too little communication, so you must act as an information director of sorts. We have lost tens of thousands of dollars backing out of deals. As painful as that's been, believe it or not, I don't regret backing out of any deal we've ultimately said no to. And I rarely think of the money we lost. That mentality is absolutely crucial to this process. Sunk costs can end careers, but only if you let them. The due diligence game can be as much psychological as it is investigatorial. You have to strike that balance of not letting fear chase you away from a good deal and not allowing commitment bias thrust you into a poor investment decision. I'll end with this. Trust your gut. If you feel like something is missing, keep pressing. I've had that go both ways. Once where we found a black swan and backed out, and once where I legitimately couldn't find anything to confirm my suspicion and we closed the deal. The key takeaway in each is that I followed my intuition yet remained rational, not allowing myself to create delusions about a landmine that was or wasn't actually there. I uncovered every stone I could and rested easy knowing that I did everything I could. And really, that's where you need to end up. Happy with whatever decision you ultimately make. Like I said in the episode Due Diligence Nightmare, you can survive big mistakes. You'll win some and you'll lose some. But at the end of the day, you need to rest easy with whatever comes. So, uncover every stone you can, then come what may. Entrepreneurs make mistakes, but with the overwhelming amount of free information out there, you don't have to be doomed to making those same mistakes. You just have to find a consolidated version of the most important information. What if I told you I'll gift you all of my DD mistakes I've made over the years for free? Just leave me a 5-star review, screenshot the review after it goes live, and email it to me at my website, archimedesgrp.com. Afterwards, join our Facebook group, Mobile Home Park Mastermind. You'll find hundreds of other mobile home park owners sharing ideas, contractors, and deals. It's free to join, and we would absolutely love having you join us.